Roma are a group of people. It's the largest ethnic minority in Europe. They are a distinct ethnic minority and they live all over. So some of them live in America, Australia, Europe. The Roma community is not homogeneous, so they belong to different, they have different tribes. They've got different tribes within the Roma community. And as such, they speak different languages, different dialects. They also come from different regions in Europe. Religiously, again, they very much assume the religion of the place where they live.
I think it's useful to think of Roma as a people who originated from northwest India in approximately the 10th century, and let's not think of them as a group of people who one day kind of got up and went, right, if we set off now, by the 15th century we'll hit Scotland. It wasn't as intentional as that. What you have is groups of people who had a nomadic way of life over a period of time, were moving approximately north and west through what is now Afghanistan, the Middle East, and hit what was then the Byzantine Empire by the 11th, 12th century, and they became established in the Balkans, where there is still a sizable Roma population today. So let's think of the Balkans in the 11th, 12th, 13th century, where we have Roma established both as locally nomadic population, so they might be settled in villages during the winter and then nomadic during the summer. They might be totally nomadic, and then at some point, for reasons that we don't actually know, in the 14th century and into the 15th century we start getting accounts of sort of bands of between sort of 50, sort of 60 people very often, and they're travelling in groups. They're often turning up outside the city-states in say the German principalities, and they're offering a range of different travelling crafts. So they might be sort of mending and fixing things. They're offering entertainment, music, palmistry, and first of all, they're very much welcomed. And so they're travelling and they're seen as being entertainers. Princes and courts are welcoming them, and they're seen as actually being something of an attraction. So we start seeing them in sort of different sorts of ways, invading themselves in early modern society. So what we can think of as being some kind of welcome for these groups of Egyptians in the 15th century. By the 16th century, things have changed, and this isn't because the Egyptians themselves are doing something particularly different. It's because Europe itself is starting to change, and change quite profoundly. This is the time of the Reformation, of uncertainty in the economy. It's a time that we have lots of harvest failures, and what we also see then is a rise of vagrancy, of begging. So what we start seeing right across Europe is a series of bits of legislation trying to control vagrancy generally, and within that the actions of Egyptians specifically. I think it's useful to think how much the Nazis were building on things that were already there. So what we start seeing in the 1920s, individual towns and cities starting to insist that individual families and particular people have their own identity documents that marks them out as Roma or Sinti, that they move into a municipal camp where they have to stay, which may or may not, to begin with, be locked at night. They may have to prove that they have got regular work, and if they haven't got regular work, then they may be given and forced to take up a particular kind of regular work, which is often very low paid, very back-breaking work. And so when the Nazis come in 1933, what we start seeing then is not them starting from scratch, and not them suddenly imposing their eugenics ideas and their insistence that these people should be put in camps because they're separate from the rest of the population, because they are racially polluting the rest of the population. What we see is them actually pushing on an open door.
It's important because they very much have shaped European history. Very little is known about them. They haven't really had a chance to talk about their own history, because people were not really interested in knowing about their history. Knowing about Roma and how they have perceived history, I think it's incredibly important to change people's perceptions and stigma.